This is Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz, where stories shine, faith ignites, and every soul finds its flame. I'm your host, Elizabeth Richmond. I'm a mom, educator, and faith led advocate walking this journey with you. Whether you're navigating neurodiversity, parenting with a purpose, or raising a child that just doesn't fit the mold, or even rediscovering who you are beyond the labels, you're at the right place. Let's go deeper than diagnosis. Let's uncover identity. Let's live beyond the labels. In today's episode, we are exploring the topic balancing work, family, and faith, a mother's journey with autism. And today, we're just tackling this question: how do you balance it all? Many of us who are raising children on the spectrum or children with special needs are juggling multiple roles. And how do we balance it all? Many of us are crying for help, but I couldn't think of a better person or a better guest to invite than my friend, Mrs. Taneisha Pascoe-Matthews. Taneisha is a powerhouse, a woman of faith, and she is a SENCO, an assistant principal, accomplished mathematician, teacher, published author, contributed to an academic text, and she actually wears many hats. She's a wife and she's a mother to two lovely boys. And she is going to share with us today on this important topic. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
When you need ultrasound that's safe and effective, you must visit Asai Ultrasound Imaging. They're conveniently located at number 4 Chestnut Center, Smith Road, Georgetown, Cayman Islands. With experienced technologists with over 20 years experience, their friendly staff will make you comfortable while you get your procedure done. Asai Ultrasound Imaging is open Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. Call Asai Ultrasound Imaging 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426. That's 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz, where stories shine, faith ignites, and every soul finds its flame. I'm here with my very special guest, Mrs. Taneisha Pascoe. Welcome to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz. Could you introduce yourself to our guests, please?
Thank you for the invite, and what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for inviting me to the program. And I know at the end there you said Pascal Williams. People tend to call me Pascal Williams, Pascal Matthews. That's fine.
Pascoe Matthews. My apologies. Yes, yes.
It's one of those things that have happened. So I am from a tiny little community in South Manchester in Jamaica. I'm currently residing in the UK, but I'm a Jamaican girl through and through. So I'm from a small community in South Manchester. I went to high school at the Bishop Gibson High School for Girls in Mandeville. And then I went to Church Teachers College again in Mandeville. I moved on and I taught at two schools in Jamaica, Central High and Lennon High, both of them in Clarendon. Clarendon has a special place in my heart. That's where my husband is from. And then I moved to the UK in 2008 to take up a position in Norfolk, in the east of England, a maths teaching role. It was at that time that I became pregnant 2 years in, and my first son was born, Jaden. So this journey with autism started after my son was born. So I was working as a maths teacher, and then I moved to London because when you're raising children and when they have certain level of needs, it's very good to be close to family where you can get that support. So I moved to London, took up another role as Key Stage 3 coordinator for maths. But as my son was progressing, I realized that he was not going to be walking the typical path, having received the autism diagnosis. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to train to become a SENCO. It's a special needs coordinator role here in the United Kingdom. And I studied to be a trained SENCO, and then I became an assistant head teacher, did some more training, the national head teacher qualification, NPQH. So that has been the journey to where I'm at currently. So I see myself as an advocate, and I do advocate via my Instagram account, Spotlight on Autism, and also the many referrals that I do get via WhatsApp from different family members. So again, it's Taneisha, and it's been that kind of a journey from Manchester in Jamaica.
Wow, thank you so much for joining us. And I must tell our viewers and listeners that we were also batchmates in college. And I remember when I was teaching in the UK, you were such a resource for me, helping me settle in. And I remember when I met your lovely boys, and you were such a wealth of information. And one of the things that struck me about you is that despite the fact that you yourself have your challenges, you were always helping others, and you always have a smile. No one would know how you were dealing with so many things. And a scripture that comes to mind when I think of you is Proverbs 31, verse 25. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. And I'm telling you, you are such a wonderful person. So I want to ask though, Taneisha, tell us about your boys, their personalities, and what motherhood has looked like for you.
So in terms of the boys, and as you said, the you've met the boys. So Jaden is now 15. Ethan is 9. There are some parallels, but even while being autistic, they're quite different. And that's where that phrase has that thought has come in. There's a popular saying, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism, because they might share the diagnosis, but personality wise, they're different. And that's what Jaden and Ethan is like. Now, Jaden didn't speak until he was almost 8 years old and didn't follow simple instruction. But now I've shared some videos of Jaden online. He's a natural reader now. He speaks a lot. And so language is not a problem for him currently. Ethan, who is now 9, he's still nonverbal, or I don't know what the Lord has in store. It might be that he's pre-verbal, and that at some point he's going to also find his voice. But currently he doesn't speak. He uses his iPad to communicate if he needs anything. They're both loving boys. Ethan, he likes to cuddle. But he's a firecracker, and I talk about this a lot with my husband to say I am naturally quiet, outspoken but quiet. Jaden is quiet, and my husband would people describe him as being quiet. And Ethan came along and said, "Well, you know what? I'm gonna spice things up in this house." And he is just a firecracker. He doesn't take no. And he is one that's very lively, adventurous, always climbing. But he's a happy little boy. How autism presents for him, he gets a lot of meltdowns, and so he gets dysregulated at times, and I have to find ways to get him to be a little bit more calmer. But he's a bit of a firecracker. Jaden, on the other hand, very quiet, doesn't get into trouble at school, has zero behavior points, and he's also quite caring. He loves his friends, loves cooking, likes to watch YouTube, like the typical teenager. He watches television. He does some art. and he likes taking photographs.
Wow. Wow, that's just so awesome, Tanisha. I mean, you're just enjoying your boys. And I know through the challenges, you must remember that scripture, God's grace is sufficient. I know that that text has carried me through. His grace is sufficient because sometimes I know the struggle is real. So, so that leads to my next question. Because I know many parents are watching now and they really want to, get some tips. So, I think I've passed. Right. So, my next question is, I know during COVID, that period when we were all in that lockdown, I saw when you launched your online program, right? Did your advocacy really begin during COVID? And really, what gave you that willpower to keep posting and what's the impact since?
So I've been advocating via Twitter because I think when you're from the Caribbean, I've been advocating via Twitter and Facebook. So people who
Right.
know me personally, my Facebook account, it was private. So if you were in my friendship list, you would see the autism post about Jaden and Ethan. Twitter was another space where there were many British teachers and I had many followings, educators and so on, and mostly people from the UK. Now, autism doesn't carry the stigma that it in the UK as it does in Jamaica. And so there's a freeness to talk about autism there. And that's where I've learned a lot from other parents. On
Lovely.
Facebook, and on Facebook, I spoke about autism, not as much as on Twitter. But then during COVID, I decided to start one of many voices in terms of an autism page. There's so many pages online. And also I started a page for Jaden called Genuinely Jaden, which I'm not taking down, but I've carried on with the spotlight on autism. And the reason for that, when I decided to talk about autism on my Facebook page, where I had most of my Jamaican friends, Bishop Gibson High School past students, Church Teachers College past students, and students from South Manchester and so on, I had so many private messages saying, oh, actually, my child is also autistic, or I know someone who has a child who is autistic or a friend of mine, and so both people were asking me, "What did you do? How did Jaden start speaking and so on?" And that's when I started sharing more information. And it's very difficult because I don't want to be seen to be selling a cure or seen to be telling people that if you do X, Y will happen. The autism journey doesn't work like that. And the more you're in the community, you will see that many people are trying the same things, or children going to the same schools, they have the same teachers, they have the same therapies, but the children react differently to it. So sometimes I do feel guilty when I say, okay, this is what I've done, because sometimes parents are expecting certain outcomes. And I know that as a matter of fact, with my two boys, we've tried almost the same things. Ethan is still nonverbal. Jaden is now a child, like Jaden just speaks freely. And so I advocate, but there's always that little fine print to say to parents that you're trying this because you want to see some improvement, but it
Right.
might work.
That's right. And I must tell you, from your advocacy, that's what encouraged me because I didn't even know that it would be my lived experience as well. But, God places people in your life for a reason, and who knows why He gave us these assignments, right? So, thank you for that. Now, you wear so many hats as I've shared: SENCO, assistant principal, author, speaker, and mom. Now, what does balance look like realistically? Because for many of us, we're just trying to survive. What does it look like for you realistically?
And I think for me, I have a busy brain, and I think if I was born in the UK and if I attended school in the UK, maybe I would have received a my own diagnosis of possibly autism, because autism is a spectrum. You know that the richest man in the world, who I don't necessarily want to call his name, is is known to be autistic. And I know when I was young, I was described by many of the traits: being stubborn, being stuck in my own way, only eating certain type of foods and so on. So I have a busy brain. So every moment, every time I'm up, if I'm not asleep, I'm thinking about something, I'm doing something, I'm reading something. So in terms of creating a balance, you have to be honest. You also have to have a conscience. So I'm a Christian. And having a conscience means that I'm gonna balance my work, which means that I need to do it well. I need to understand my role as a mother, and that's the most important. It's not a job, but it's your most important role, and I need
Yes.
to also do that well. I'm a wife, and my husband is the most supportive husband out there. uh, so in terms of thinking about what I need to do, so when I go to work, I give 100%. It means that when I get home, I don't necessarily need to carry on with work, because when I'm there, I'm giving 100% to the children and the family that I serve and staff. When I'm at home, I'm quite playful, and luckily, I have more of a, I don't know, mixed personality. I'm quite immature at times in my ways in terms of how I interact with my children. So I'm on the floor, I'm singing, I'm dancing, I'm in the park, I'm on the swing. So I get into their world. So I'm there in their world. So I know that that's something that I have to do. Sometimes I'm invited to speak at functions and on the weekend, or I might designate some time on a Saturday morning, and I might say, for this 2 hours, I'm going to be planning this presentation. But it takes some planning in terms of identifying
Right.
times for other things. So for me, the priority would be my children, making time for them, and work, making sure that when I go to work, I'm giving 100%, because it's not voluntary, it's paid work. And I know sometimes when people talk about balance, it's like put your family first. Yes, you must do that, but we can't do less of a job in the workplace. We have to make sure as Christians we are
Yes.
doing the right thing, because we are being paid for that work. But also
That's
when we
right.
come, yeah, when we get home, we're switching off and we're completely committed to home. So that's how I've kind of I would been able to achieve that balance.
That's so profound. Thank you for that. So, folks, if you're just joining us, you're listening to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz, where stories shine, faith ignites, and every soul finds its flame.
Do you have a talent for singing, playing an instrument, spoken word, or dance? Then this is your moment. Cayman's Got Talent Season 1 is here. And for our first season, we're putting the spotlight on gospel. Selected participants will be featured at the Point of Praise Gospel Extravaganza on October 25, 2025. But hurry, the final date for registration is September 30. To register, email us at info@flashpointmedia.ky or WhatsApp 345-321-6969. That's 345-321-6969. Don't miss this opportunity to showcase your talent and be part of something special. K-Man's Got Talent.
So, we're here listening to Mrs. Taneisha Pascoe-Matthews, and she's sharing some tips on how to really have that balance, being a mom of autistic boys. Right. So, many parents of neurodiverse children, they can't take traditional holidays or breaks. What does rest and refreshment look like for your family?
I have to say it's very challenging. And for a moment there, I put my microphone on mute. And the reason for that, my son was having a meltdown outside the door.
Oh,
So I put it on mute. It's back on now. In terms of risk, you have to be intentional about it and you have to plan for it. But it
intentional.
depends.
Okay.
Yeah, and it depends on the the young person presents with autism. So as I said, with my oldest son, I had time. He didn't have a single meltdown. So we were able to get on with life as typically as possible. With my younger son, the last time I went to Jamaica was 2022. And I've said recently, I don't know when I'm going back on a 9 hours flight. The reason,
Wow.
yeah, the reason for that, when I went to Jamaica last time for 5.5 hours, he was standing, he was touching people in front, he was touching people behind, he was moving up and down, and luckily people were quite kind
Right.
in terms of their interaction and understanding. That was on the plane. I won't talk about my experience at the airport.
Oh, wow.
That's for another show. But people in general, they were really really, really, really kind. But in terms of me and thinking about the holidays, it's not something that we can do in terms of how Ethan is experiencing autism at this time in terms of traveling overseas, in terms of that plane ride being a long plane ride. But in terms of locally, and
Yeah.
if people do follow my Instagram account, they'll see that every opportunity that we get, especially during the school holidays, we're in the local park where we go to local areas where there's open space. So he does better with open space. You have to know your child, regardless
Yeah.
of looks flashy and regardless of certain recommendation, you have to think about your child. So if I think about Ethan, Ethan likes to be in the backyard. He likes to be pulling on the grass and trees. He likes to play. I'm from South Manchester, so I can say dirt. That's Ethan. So for me, when I'm planning stuff for him, that's where we go. We go to the park. We go to the beach, not like Jamaican beach. It's Stony Beach up here. And it's cold. You can't go in the water. So it looks good in photographs, and they can play with pebbles and so on. So that's what I'll do for him. Now, for my oldest son, Jaden, we might go to Central London and we went to the Diamond League football game that was just for Jaden and I. And that's
Absolutely.
another thing. When you have siblings, you have to find time for them equally. Because if I think about Ethan's high needs, I won't get to do anything with Jaden. So it's
That's
my
a
husband
very
and
profound point. Because
yes,
even with my journey, I sometimes expect the older one to understand and spend less time, and I have to sort of physically remind myself to spend time with the sibling.
yes, and you have to because they're children and they're learning, and they
Yes.
might not have the full understanding that actually this sibling needs more time. They might judge that as being, oh, you love that one more. That's how.
Right.
So I've set time out in the UK because I'm a teacher in the UK. So every 6 weeks we get a week off. So I
Right.
always plan to have go somewhere with Jaden at least 2 days of that week, specifically just for Jaden and I. We can go to Central London. We can go to the Lego store. He likes going out for pizza, stuff like that. Then for Ethan, no, we plan around Ethan, but we have to plan with other stuff. So in terms of my time as being a wife, to be honest with you, I mean perfectly honest, that takes like priority number three on the list. I mean, we joke sometimes about going out for birthdays, anniversaries, wedding anniversary in December, and that's it. But we've now gotten to a point where the reality is we can't eat out because Ethan will climb on the table, he might have a meltdown, and so we tend to be having takeaway and having it at home where we can enjoy because there's no point doing stuff as I said. There's no point doing things because a lot of people are doing it and you're going through and it's not enjoyable.
That's right.
Yes, so you have to find what works for you because if we think about Instagram and Facebook and social media, it can carry you down path that you don't need to be on. We all have we're all traveling our own little journey. There's a saying that we're in the same storm, but different type of boat. some are in yachts. Is that how
Yeah.
you say that word?
Yes.
And some are just in a paddle boat. And so you have to think about your own resources and you have to think about what autism looks like for your family. So regardless of what's going on, you think about what will work for my family and you do that. Don't I would say try and be out as much as possible, even for a short period. So you're not at home because you might get really down where that is concerned. But in terms of husband and wife time, the reality is because we're in the UK and we don't have a lot of family here, we don't have a lot of time. My husband and I, we do not get a lot of time.
Wow. And you've dropped some golden nuggets there. So being intentional about how we spend time, knowing your child and what works for your child. And I mean, a friend of mine had said that the girl that we used to know no longer lives here. It's a different story. Because I can't hang out with my friends either like how I used to. Every now and again, yes, if I'm intentional about planning who will sit, who understands how to work with my son and so on. But very important information there. Thank you so much. Now I know you've talked about your older son, making lots of progress. I know you're a math teacher, so I sometimes see you post some videos with him doing his math. How have you and done some life skills? I've seen you done some cooking there, but how have you supported him in building independence while keeping realistic expectations?
Well, for me, because I work in a school, and sometimes when you go to parents' evening, and they'll tell you all the glorious things. And because if you go to parents' evening, they're not going to say, they're going to be as positive as possible.
Right.
And the reality is, for many children who are autistic, they need they need a lot of repetition.
Yes.
They need to be going over information and concepts just numerous times. And with that in mind, and I must accept that I have some privilege in this, in the fact that I'm a teacher. So I'm a trained teacher. So I'm not saying that parents should set up a school at home. But for
Right.
me, and I'm lucky enough that Jaden wants to work at home, because some autistic children wants to separate home and school. But we've had this routine before he could speak, where we're doing at least 20 minutes, 30 minutes at home, and he's open to that and he likes doing work. So I tend to do my own assessment to see where he's at. If someone, other parents, if they're not in the education system, they can ask schools, what do you think I need to be doing? Do I need to focus on spellings? Do I need to focus on the reading, the phonics? They could possibly ask, where are they in maths? Have they mastered the four basic operations? Should I be focusing more on multiplications? So ask those questions if you're a parent, and then you can just go and buy. Um, well, in the UK, it's not as expensive. I can go on Amazon and I can buy a maths book, a science book, an English comprehension book, and it might cost me less than £15. So again, you have to know your own resources. Or in Jamaica or in Cayman or in other areas, is where the school could provide replica resources for parents to continue to,
Absolutely.
yeah, with children at home. And it all depends on the level. So like Ethan, who is 9, he has not yet written his name. He's not speaking. He's not following certain basic instructions. So what we tend to be focused on with him is we use a lot of the iPad, and he has an iPad that he used to request food. Prolo to go. It's the
Yeah.
software that's on it.
You. I.
But he doesn't use it consistently. And so he's quite happy to come beckon for me to go to the kitchen. So he'll pull on me, he'll walk me to the kitchen, he'll stand in front of the fridge. And when he goes in front of the fridge, he either wants orange juice or he wants me to make him toast. So because I know him, I know that. So when I open the fridge, he'll point or he'll reach towards. So every time he's reaching towards something, I'm naming. So I said, "Oh, Ethan, orange juice. Ethan wants orange juice." If he points to the butter in the fridge, and I know it's toast, and I'll continue to name it because a lot of children might be nonverbal, but they know a lot. They can't tell us what they
Yes.
know. So every opportunity that you get, you need to be naming. You need to, even though they're nonverbal, you need to be speaking to them. So
Right. So sort of giving them the language to use
use,
up
yeah,
front.
because it was when Jaden started speaking, and I realized, oh, he knows a lot.
Right.
Yes, it knows a lot because you have to keep naming things and speaking to children who are nonverbal. They might not be able to speak, but they can learn. And so the information is there. And I know he's following more instruction, Ethan, the younger one. So I say, it's bath time. He goes straight up
Right.
to the room. As it's
Good.
get your shoes, he goes to get his shoes. He can't put them on correctly yet, so you have to keep that teaching going, and you have to keep the
Right.
talking going with them. So if it's academic, if it's life skill, or if it's just at the basic level, repetition, lots of
Very
repetitions.
important.
Yeah,
As they say, repetition deepens impression. Lots of
yes.
repetition. Very well. So, what keeps you going when this journey gets exhausting? Ex-
My faith, my faith, my faith, and living through answered prayers. I remember when Jaden was nonverbal, not following instruction, not potty trained, and we prayed. And my sister, who still lives in Manchester, she would go to fasting on Thursday. And every week she would go, she'd say, "Oh, they've prayed for Jaden, they've prayed for Jaden, they've prayed for him." And so you just have
right.
to wait on the Lord. And again, I say, wait on the Lord. You wait on the Lord and in his due time. And I know that sometimes we expect the answer to always be yes.
That's
And
right.
it might not be yes. And so that's another realization. So you have to, you can't wait to be happy. You
That's
have
right.
to enjoy in your current circumstance. So
That's
there's no
right.
way, yeah, there's no waiting for things to become. And so I know that for some people they say, "Taneisha, how are you so cheerful? How are you?" Because I'm not waiting to be happy. I'm not waiting for things to be quote unquote right. Because this situation might just be the right situation. Nothing happened by chance. And when we say thy will be done, we are saying thy will be done, but we don't actually believe it. And we are just doing our own thing. Or we are saying, "Lord, I'm leaving this with you." And then we pick it back up and we
That's
go on with
right.
it. So it's just my faith and the love of God, and yes, it has sustained me. Gospel music, you name it.
That's right. I love it. And I can so relate to what you're saying because it's my faith that has kept me as well and answered prayers. And that would be for another show. But God is faithful indeed. So, in terms of your advocacy, you've spoken at tests and professional development events. What's your main message to educators and leaders?
I think my main message has to be that every child has a right. I've actually went on Instagram and commented on a current affairs. It was an article where the Minister of Education in Jamaica said yesterday that she's asking teachers to help children with SEND. And I went on there and I thought, hmm, she's urging them. Why are we urging teachers to do this? This is what they, as I said, when you're paid to do a job, and I'm not taking away how hard it is.
Right.
It's as if teachers should do their job for those children who don't have needs, but being urged to help children with special needs as if it's not their responsibility. This is your responsibility. It's not an urge that you need to do this. You should do this. But I'm gonna now look at the Jamaican system, another system in that they don't necessarily have the resources. So while
Or the
the
training. Some
homeschooling,
teachers are afraid that they may not have the training.
yes, So some teachers do want to, because I engage with a lot of teachers and a lot of teachers from Jamaica, and they want to do right by those children, but they
Right.
don't have the training or the resources, and it's not funded properly. And so the same mindset that those in leadership have, that we'll do what we can do, teachers are having to do what they can do, because that's the informal policy. That so teachers don't necessarily have the resources, and so it needs to be that there's an accountability. But if you
Right.
tell me to bake a cake and you give me no flour or whatever, and I turn up with some egg and sugar and said, "Here is the cake," and but this doesn't look like a cake, like, but you didn't give me any flour. So I guess the
Right.
outcome is matching the input. And so I'm not blaming teachers, but it was surprising to see the language that, oh, we're urging. So it's clear that there isn't a system in place to, to make those reasonable adjustments. So my message with the UK context, where they do have resources, is that reasonable adjustment should be in place. It's easy to make certain adjustments here. Like for my boys, both of them have what we call an educational healthcare plan. That's a legally binding document that outlines the support that should be in place for them in school. So they both are covered for 32.5 hours. And an LSA is attached to them, so they have an additional adult. So where teachers have that level of resources open to them, then I'm expecting that they would be differentiating the work. They're calling it adaptive teaching now in the UK, scaffolding. And so when an additional adult is here working with the young people, then they have the resources. So reasonable adjustments, inclusion, and just allowing children to have a sense of belonging. So in terms of the message will be different depending on the resources that teachers,
Available.
yeah,
Yeah.
because, and that's why sometimes when my own country that I love so much, Jamaica, tend to be copying everybody. You can't copy stuff that that you cannot implement it because you don't have the resources. You need to be able to copy and paste with the resources in place. So I would love to see more done in terms of inclusion in Jamaica, but it needs to come with resources and funding.
That's right. Because I think what is there is is moving towards an inclusive environment, but not real inclusion. And I think they were working on the policy arm from when? From when they said they had the act,
Mm.
but the policy part of it, it's still
Yeah,
not
so
sorted. So,
a
yes.
very challenging situation. But just think about those. My current head teacher here in the UK, working at Catholic school, and his mantra: if it's not good enough for my children, it's not good enough for these children that I'm head teacher for. And so staff in school, if it's not good enough for my child, as if you have children, if it's not good enough for my niece and my nephew and my friend's child, then it can't be good enough for those 20 something children or that one child with special needs
Right.
in front of you. So just go give your best, give 100% in terms of whatever resources is available to you.
That's right. I know we have similar provisions here in the Cayman Islands, and we have schools have inclusion specialists and a whole multi-tier system of support. But I think the challenge mainly is in spaces. So there's one special school, but there's not enough spaces for everyone. And then there's a private school, and still. So there are some parents who may not get their child in, and some may not have insurance. So then they have to try to advocate somehow. So when the system falls short, as we've been discussing, what advice would you have for parents in terms of when they should seek help and how can they advocate for their children?
I think seek help as early as possible.
Yeah.
For me, my both my children were diagnosed just as they turned 3, and I
Oh,
think because I'm coming from a Christian background, Coming from being Jamaican, Caribbean, Black, all of that, within the culture, people will say, no, 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 you need to wait on the Lord and you need to, but faith without work is what they say, it's dead.
Yes.
You have to be able to,
Right.
you have to be able to understand that there's a reality and that you need to start as early as possible to seek help. But I again, I'm not going to be naive to say that all voices are equal. So even here in the UK, I am a teacher, I am a special needs coordinator, and I'm an assistant head teacher. So when I email my local authority and I ask, can something be done, there's a possibility that it will be done quicker than someone that they think that don't know
Right.
him. And so I think, you know, I can't speak about what's going on in terms of the equity and equality side of SEN arrangement in Jamaica, but I do from other areas where who you know and who know you, and
Right.
that
So
kind of
networking there.
indirect, yeah, indirect policy that can be in Jamaica, that sometimes you could even be advocating and asking for help early, but you're not getting that help. So probably speak to your MP, probably speak to the pastor,
Yes.
speak to JP, speak to teachers who are willing to help to advocate for you within the system. But try as early as possible. And it doesn't matter, and I like beyond the label. So for me, I'll say that the boys are autistic. They're more than being autistic. You know, as I said there, Ethan is hyperactive, he's adventurous, Jaden likes cooking. But to get the support, I needed that label because having the autism diagnosis, it meant that local authorities would put certain support in place. So whether
Right.
you think that it's autism or not, get the diagnosis and keep it private. But try as much as possible to get the support because, as I said, there's a stigma in Jamaica. And when I started speaking about autism, I actually had to block someone on Facebook because he said, "Oh, you keep talking about autism." And this is a person that wasn't encountering autism. His
Right.
children were out and about achieving all the milestones. And I was speaking about autism, and he seemed to, from his perspective, it's as if, okay, I talk about autism too much. And I'm thinking, you're not walking in the shoe that I'm walking in.
Right.
So,
So sometimes it's lack of awareness, lack of empathy, or just don't know, ignorance. And
yes,
I get this question a lot. Is he high? Once they hear, okay, he's autistic, they want to say something. They're not sure. They say, oh, is he high functioning or low functioning? I don't know if you
yeah,
get that question a lot.
they do it, but it's one of those high functioning. They don't tend to use it in the UK because they say the opposite of it is low functioning, and they don't want to be calling children. But then people will they say, "Oh, so is he good at math? Is he good at music?
Right.
Is he
Looking
good
at
at
us.
art? Is he a genius at something?" No. And many autistic children, even in the as adult, they're in nappies, they're not speaking, they'll never be independent and can live on their own. Their parents worry about what will happen to them when if should they pass on. So autism, some people almost glamorize it, make it look like it's almost fashionable, or you're going to be like an artist or a mathematician or anything like that. No, it's not glamorous. For many people, it's hard work. It's developing health problems. So I'm not
Yeah.
going to say directly. Now, I have high blood pressure. I've been on blood pressure medication for 2 years. We don't get enough sleep. We were
That
up at 2,
that's
2
true.
o'clock. So it comes with many challenges. So many challenges. And as I said, you just have to day by day. I have a
Yeah.
message on my phone, and a teacher said to me, "How is it going?" And I say, "I'm taking it hour by hour."
Yeah. And every win is a win. I like to say, once I get it, I take
Yeah.
it. You
Yeah.
know. And as you were saying, parents should, look at, should try to seek help early. Try,
Yeah.
I was thinking of the scripture. Ask and it shall be given. Seek and ye
Yes,
shall find. Knock and the door shall be open. So Jesus
yes,
was very specific about keep knocking, right?
yes.
So that is important there. And I really want to thank you so much for sharing with us. And as we're winding down, I know you have written a special book, and you have contributed to an academic text. So if you could just tell us what inspired the story Jaden Surprise, and how have families responded to this?
So I think people are either exercising during COVID,
Yeah.
overeating, or watching a lot of telly. And during that time, I decided I'm going to exercise and I'm also going to write a book.
Right.
so, so during COVID, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try and write a book. And it was a time where there were lots of conversation about not having enough diverse books for
In the
for
classroom
children,
library.
yeah, and children should see themselves in books to for them to believe that things are possible. And I thought, I'm going to write a book for Jaden. So that was a little bit silly because now I need to write a second book. So that book I wrote for Jaden. It was. And then I look what's something that has inspired him, what's something that has kept him for those first 8 years when he was struggling with autism and how with autism. So his trains, they were his constant companion, and he has so many trains. And I remember buying a set of trains on eBay called Chuggington trains. And when you connect them, they interacted with each other. So they were like talking trains. And those trains I bought about a month before he started speaking. And so the book is called The Biggest Surprise, Jaden and the Talking Trains. And so he started talking right about the time. And I know I've been asked before, is it that he started speaking because of the train? And I can't say whether it's he started speaking because of the train, because I know the years of therapy, speech
Right.
therapy, occupational therapy, his one-to-one table at school, his one-to-one LSA at school, all of that. And I remember my first speaking role. I spoke about the Chinese bamboo, where you plant it for a number of years and nothing happened, and then it grows a number of feet in a couple of days. And so with Jaden, there was that explosive language right there, but it could be that all of the work that was done prior to getting those trains, and that was
Plus.
yeah, yeah, for it. So I won't say to people that's the reason he started talking, because I know all the work, but that was the point that it happened. And so the book is called Biggest Surprise, Jaden and the Talking Train. It's still on Amazon.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
would urge parents and teachers to get a copy of this book to add to your classroom library in the primary schools, because it's so lovely for other children to also know how to interact with students with special needs, and for the students with special needs to interact with typical um, children, because we're all um, meant to exist together and to
Yeah.
thrive. And I've read the book, lovely, lovely, reader friendly. And
Okay.
I also want you to tell our listeners, especially the educators, about the other book you've contributed to, because I've looked at it and I see that it's a wealth of information.
So I've contributed a chapter to a book called Send Her, SEND and HUH. And this I did a chapter on it, and the focus of it was about reasonable adjustments in secondary school, parents working harmoniously with school, because we're in a climate now where it's quite toxic, lots of complaints going on in
Yes,
school. Yeah, I also spoke about they having a high expectation when it's unrealistic expectation, and so many children with special needs attending schools, and they keep getting U grades and U grades because they can't access the curriculum. So I spoke about children almost colliding with the curriculum over and over and coming out with not much. And that's why a lot of what I do with Jade, and I've gone from foundation. So I remember from Church Teachers College where they say in every lesson students should experience success. So
Right.
yeah, you should always let them do something that they can already do. But in every lesson, they should learn something new. And if students aren't experiencing success, then they're going to lack motivation and they're not necessarily going to want to be in your classroom. So make sure they can do something that will encourage them to keep going, but also
That's
attain
right.
it with a new knowledge. And I spoke about that in that book about the fact that some children are just colliding with the curriculum rather than gaining meaningful access where there's a strong foundation and that they can build on it. So I think in Jamaica the SATs, they do similar in the GSAT, they do similar in the UK course. Jaden didn't do the SATs because he couldn't access the exam, but now he's going into year 10. He has his options, and more than likely he's going to do GCSEs because we've done some work with building a foundation.
Awesome, awesome. And I've looked in that text and I particularly like the strategies that you shared in terms of when the teacher set the objectives, how to get them to all students with special needs to also get challenging tasks, because we just don't want to give them something that's easy and they're not learning something new like the other kids.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
lovely
sorry.
results there.
Yeah, thank you. It was an ed psych who said to me that I had a boy and I spoke to the ed psych about the young person working at a much slower pace but having good knowledge. And so what he said, because teachers tend to set questions in range of difficulty. So the first three questions might be easy and it progressively gets a little bit more challenging. So she said to me, you need to say to staff, let the student do question 1 and 2, then 6 and 7, then 11 and 12, and probably 14. So you're not going to penalize them because they haven't completed everything, because you can't punish someone because of their special needs. And the special need they're identified is slow writing, slow processing, and taking a longer time to get things done. But you don't want that student to always be, when the time is up there on question 5 and they haven't challenged themselves. So think
That's
about
right.
how, yeah.
Wow, you've shared so much with us today. Um, you've been such a powerhouse indeed. So, what's next for you, whether professionally, in advocacy, or personally? What's
Well,
next for you?
I thought so. You know the human side of thinking. Okay, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, then I'm just going to let the Lord have His way. So I've written on LinkedIn that I am not open to work. It means that I'm staying I'm staying where I'm at the minute, because with Jane, I'm going into year 10. Ethan going into year 4, but they have a different system here in terms of key stage 1 because he's part of an autism nurture group. My focus now is on priority number 1, which is my children. So,
Yeah.
in terms of where I'm at in my profession, I'm an assistant head teacher. It means that I work enough pennies so I can look to see prioritizing my children. It doesn't mean I still have on the list of things I want to do. I want to be a head teacher for in an autism school when the time is right. But right now, I'm focusing on making sure that I have enough time. I'm doing my job well, because if my job is a special needs coordinator, those children are my children in my school as well. So I need to make sure that I have time to do my job well, and I
Yes.
need to make sure that I have time to be a good parent. So for now, I'm not looking to do anything in terms of professionally moving up, and I do get requests quite a bit about speaking at conferences and so on. And I've also put out there that I'm no longer doing conferences, because again I have to use my weekends and so on to plan, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to be planning anything in that time. And so if I get asked to speak as a parent, then there's no planning. That's my life, my experience. That's
That's right.
or anything that's going to take me away from my children to go and plan. It's not
Wow.
going to
Thank you so much, Mrs. Taneisha Pascoe Matthews. You have certainly shared a lot of gems with us today, and it has been a blessing listening to you. Um, and if you could share one message with a mom listening today who feels, one last message with a mom who feels she doesn't even have time for herself, what would you say?
As I said, you have to be intentional. I said this autism journey. Oh, it's very hard, and it depends. And I'm saying this because for chapter one, when I look back now, oh, that was easy peasy, as the kids would say. You have to think about your own situation. You have to prioritize certain things. So your well-being being one of them. So you think about what is within your control, and if certain things are not in your control, you release them, you let them go, you ask for help. And again, there's a trust issue when we have children who are nonverbal and they can't tell us if something has happened to them. So you have to make sure that if you're gonna make a little bit of a time for yourself, it has to be people that you trust 100%. And you can't even trust people 100%, but there has to be like one or two people that you can trust. But you have to be intentional about time for yourself. So even at home, I know I don't have travel time to go to the gym, and I also save money, so I put YouTube on. I find a dance routine for 30 minutes. I'm at home, I change into my gym wear, I put it on for half an hour, I might put music in the background, and that's my me time. So I get that, and that helps. Exercise helps the brain, the mood. I would say as much as possible, try to have a tidy enough space that also helps the mind. So these are some of the little things. And don't worry about, what other people are doing. You have to really think about your circumstance, or everybody's best is different because we have different. So I live in a two-parent home. There's some people who are single parent. So I can say I'm going through a bad day, Ethan has had a meltdown, I can come to this room, I can sit here for half an hour, my husband takes over. Some parents don't have that, so you have to think about what you can do with the resources that you have, and be intentional about taking time for yourself. Because if you're not at your best, you can't then give your best to your children. And
That's right.
a lot of us can't even be at our best. So just do what's best, the best version of what's available to you.
That's right. And as you've mentioned, being intentional a lot. So even being intentional about, taking a moment for yourself. Because there's the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. So refilling, refueling. I like to meditate on scriptures because our faith keeps us going, indeed. So we've come to the end of our show for today. It has been lovely speaking with you. It's a real pleasure and eye-opening, I'm sure, for many of our viewers listening. I like to close with a short prayer. So, viewers, you've been listening to Faith Beyond the Labels, where stories shine, faith ignites, and every soul finds its flame. So we've been chatting with Mrs. Taneisha Pascoe-Matthews, a special education needs coordinator at SENCO, a mom of two lovely autistic boys, a wife, and she's also wearing many hats, an author, teacher, and she has been sharing a wealth of information with us, packed into our. So as we close this session, Hebrews 11 verse 1 reminds us faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So thank God, thank you, Lord, for strong mothers, for supportive husbands, for children who teach us patience and love in unique ways. Thank you for supportive friends and families, and our children who teach us patience and love. We pray for balance and renewal for every listener. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. So you've been listening to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz. If this conversation sparks something in your heart, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend or someone who needs it. So thanks for joining me today. And please remember to join me again, same time next week. Just share and subscribe. Keep rising, keep loving, and keep trusting God beyond the labels.